Now joined by TSN Hockey insider Chris Johnston and our Edmonton Oilers reporter Ryan Rishaug. So an interesting few days here for the Oilers. We thought yesterday was going to be a day off for them. They hold a full practice. Yeah. Today was supposed to be a day off. Connor McDavid and Draisaitl on the ice. Ryan, what do you make of how things are playing out here?
I think tweaking their schedule based on results, right? The Oilers were not happy with the way things went in game number 3, and I just think they felt like it wasn't about rest. It wasn't about tired legs. I think they wanted to get down to business and get to work. So we saw a really energetic, boisterous practice yesterday. We assumed everyone would take the day off again today. That ended up not being the case, despite the fact wasn't supposed to be anybody. Pretty healthy group ends up on the ice for the Edmonton Oilers. Draisaitl, Connor McDavid among them. So, I don't know, CJ, we've seen this before. Sometimes top players, when their game isn't where they want it to be, rather than rest, it's about leaning into details. We saw this from Crosby and the like at the Four Nations as well. We couldn't believe how much they were skating, and you have McDavid and Draisaitl now potentially going 3 days in a row because it's supposed to be a full skate pregame before Game 4.
Exactly. And, well, look, athletes that are in great shape want to stay in shape, I guess. But, I mean, look, Brad Marchand actually mentioned that time at the Four Nations gave him a little insight into what he thinks is happening on the Oilers side of things. And he mentioned that Connor McDavid, in his words, is someone who leads from the front. And I think there might be a little element of that at play, too. I mean, obviously, every individual athlete, guys are banged up. It's mid-June here almost. Everyone has to do what's best for their own bodies. But I do think, he's setting a certain tone. I really believe that we saw that in the practice they had. But even just getting out there, I think it says something about where his mind's at. And obviously, we're down here in Florida. They could be on a beach, but this is all about business for the Oilers.
Well, no Oilers players spoke to the media today, but we did hear from Coach Chris Knobloch via Zoom, and he said they will likely make a lineup change for Game 4. What do you think that may be?
Yeah, so the notables out of that isn't ready to name a goaltender yet, and did sort of say there probably will be a change. I think the obvious one would be Troy Stecher in and John Klingberg out. Klingberg has been very good through these playoffs, but in this series he's been on the ice for a number of even-strength goals against. Stecher has been very good when they pair him with Darnell Nurse, so I could see that switch. Also, I have to think maybe they're contemplating Jeff Skinner. I think the Oilers have lots of size and lots of toughness and meanness in the lineup. You got, pretty good goal scorer sitting on the sidelines. So if they want to get that offense going, he'd be an option. And then you've got Nugent Hopkins, who he said will be a game-time decision.
Panthers getting production from their bottom six. Brad Marchand, again, having a great series. Panthers optional skate today. Of course, Marchand was on the ice. He loves getting out there. He was loving life on and off the ice today, Chris.
Yeah, I feel like a reporter in 1985 must have felt covering the Oilers in a cup final because I got to talk to him for about half an hour after the scrum. So thank you for that, Brad, and Panthers PR. But also, real insight, I think, to where this guy's at. I mean, look at this. He's having the time of his life. And I guess there can be some good things about becoming an older player. You gain perspective. I think he really has true appreciation and gratitude for getting another chance at a Stanley Cup. He lost his last two with the Boston Bruins, won one all the way back in 2011, early in his career. But, you feel like he literally is completely in the moment, not stressed about anything, even though obviously these games carry huge stakes and there's a lot riding on the line here. And I really think that that's flowing through the team too. And so, he kind of embodies the Panthers. It's hard to believe this guy's even a Panther sometimes because of how long he was in Boston. But, he's having a obviously marvelous series, scoring goals and all those things. But I think he's having fun too.
And when you get onto this stage, like the Panthers don't deal with a ton of media throughout their year. When you get onto this stage, the crush of the NHL media comes to town. And when you have a player like Brad Marchand who's willing to stand there and chat for 30 or 40 minutes, that takes pressure day to day off of the Reinhardts and the Barkovs and the Bobrovskis and the other high-end guys. So outside of what he does on the ice, there is a space he fills off the ice that is really meaningful at this time of year.
Yeah, Paul Maurice was saying Marchand brings everything. You always leave your interactions with him with a smile. I saw at one point on the ice today, Marchand was doing, the turtle gesture. Yeah. Of course, we saw that a couple times from some Oilers players.
And what did Maurice say? He was like a 2:30 deadline day decision, like a last-minute decision that they made, and it's been working amazingly.
Yeah. So I saw that. The turtle stuff led to some smiles on the ice today. The Oilers not smiling. They have not loved how things have played out here with some of that kind of gray area stuff. They feel, a couple guys have mentioned, they feel like the Panthers get away with more than they do. What do you make of what the Panthers are saying about that?
Well, the Oilers aren't smiling. The Hurricanes weren't smiling. The Maple Leafs weren't smiling. The Lightning weren't smiling. There's a trend here, right? Florida has become the masters, I think, of turning the other cheek. and sort of provoking, doing things that is on the line, maybe a little across the line, but then reeling it back in. And this is one thing that they learned from their own cup loss back in 2023 is they felt at that point in time, they got to the final, but they were undisciplined during that run, took too many penalties, pushed it too far, and maybe didn't turn the other cheek when the emotion and energy went up into a game. And so this is part of what they are. They lure you in, they frustrate you, they draw penalties, frankly, in retaliation. And I'm sure that Chris Knobloch is hammering this message home behind the scenes, because you want to play the game at 5-on-5 if you're Edmonton. And we've seen so many penalties in this series. It's almost kind of crazy through 3 games. And I think a lot of it is due to the way that Florida turns the temperature up.
And I don't think it's just about taking the extra minor penalties. I think it's about the headspace. So in game number 1, the Oilers handled that stuff perfectly. They protected their crease. They stood their ground. They didn't get anything too ridiculous. Game 3, they just overdid it. I thought Jake Wallman was distracted by this stuff. I thought there were a number of players in the first 40 minutes. It was like they were trying to prove something that they didn't need to prove, and I think they're aware of this. I think we'll see a more understated approach by the Oilers. They'll protect their goaltender. They'll protect each other, but they're not going to look like they're trying to prove something every time the whistle goes. At least that would be my thought of what they need to do.
Panthers also turning the cheek off the ice. I asked Aaron Ekblad what he thought about the Oilers saying that the Panthers get away with more than they do, and he said, I'm not biting on that question.